The sky burned red as alien warships hovered above Earth. Their hulls glowed with strange symbols, casting shadows over the cities below. Families huddled together in the streets, staring up at the massive ships that blotted out the sun. A cold voice echoed across every screen and loudspeaker, declaring that humanity was guilty of crimes against the galaxy. No trial, no proof, only judgment. Commander Elias Kane stood on the balcony of the United Fleet Command, his jaw tight. Soldiers moved quickly behind him, preparing ships for evacuation. The order had come from the Galactic Council. Humans were to be exiled beyond the known star map into the dead zones, the so-called uncharted space where no species dared to live. Massive troop carriers descended through the clouds, their blue beams pulling human ships into place for transport. Resistance fighters tried to break free, but alien drones swarmed them, forcing surrender. Kane watched as one of Earth's last defense cruisers was dragged away, its crew powerless. On the streets below, civilians shouted, pleaded, even threw rocks at the patrol drones. The machines ignored them. The Council soldiers, tall, armored, insect-like, moved with cold precision, herding humans into waiting transports. Children clung to their parents, their small faces wet with tears. In the command room, screens lit up with coordinates. Kane's second-in-command, Captain Mira Solon, slammed her fist against the console. "They're sending us straight into the dead zones. They might as well kill us now." Kane's voice was steady. "They think we'll die there. We won't." His eyes were fixed on the map, already memorizing the route they were being forced to take. Hours later, the fleets formed in orbit, hundreds of human ships surrounded by alien escorts. The journey began, engines flaring as they left their home behind. Through the viewports, Earth grew smaller, blue and green fading into the endless black of space. Many soldiers looked away, unable to bear the sight. Days passed in silence. The alien escorts kept their weapons locked on the human fleet. Supplies were rationed. The crews whispered about what lay ahead. Ghost planets, dead civilizations, strange signals no one could explain. When the ships finally crossed into the dead zones, something changed. The alien escorts suddenly broke formation, turning back without a word. Kane stepped forward, watching as their lights vanished into the distance. No further instructions came. They were alone. The first world they reached was covered in ruins. Towers stretched into the clouds, broken and silent. Rivers of silver metal ran through the valleys, reflecting the light of a dying sun. No life signs, no movement, yet the air was breathable. Scouts landed and reported back with strange findings. Buildings still had power, machines still hummed under the ground, as if waiting. Kane ordered more teams to explore. They found libraries filled with unreadable symbols, hangars holding ships unlike any seen before. Deep in the heart of one ruined city, an exploration team sent a frantic message. They had found a massive structure half buried under centuries of dust, a sphere of black metal taller than any human building. Its surface shifted like liquid when touched, but nothing could pierce it. Kane arrived with engineers. They set up camp around the sphere, scanning it from every angle. The readings were impossible. The structure's energy signature was stronger than anything in human records. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. At night, the air around the sphere seemed to shimmer. Soldiers reported hearing faint whispers, voices in no known language. Kane didn't believe them until he heard it himself, a deep, slow tone that made his chest vibrate. Captain Solon approached him, her face pale. "Whatever this is, it's not dead. It's waiting." Kane stood in the glow of the alien sphere, his mind racing. The Council had cast them out, hoping to erase humanity from history. But here in this forgotten place lay something that could change everything. He looked at his crew, saw the fear in their eyes, and also the spark of hope. "This is where we start," he said. "Not the end, the beginning." As the camp worked through the night, the sphere's pulsing grew stronger, as if answering him. Far above, in the cold darkness of the dead zones, faint signals spread outward, signals the rest of the galaxy would soon hear. Scouts moved deeper into the ruins, their boots crunching on broken glass and strange metallic dust. The air was still, heavy with the scent of age. Every building seemed frozen in time, as if the people who lived there had vanished in a single breath. Some rooms were untouched, with tables still set for meals, while others were shattered as if battles had taken place long ago. Kane studied the reports coming in from all directions. Power grids were still alive under the surface, feeding energy to unknown locations. Machines the size of small cities lay dormant, their surfaces smooth and unmarked despite the centuries. Engineers whispered about the possibility of reactivating them, though no one knew their purpose. In one sector, a team uncovered a massive underground chamber filled with glowing crystal pillars. The crystals pulsed faintly, and each pulse matched the rhythm of the black sphere. When they touched one, the crystal displayed moving images, alien cities, strange ships, and creatures that no one had ever seen before. The images ended with a blinding flash and silence. Captain Solon brought Kane a fragment of metal from the ruins. It was impossibly light yet unbreakable, even under plasma cutters. Tests showed it could withstand heat and force far beyond anything human technology could handle. Kane immediately ordered it to be studied for ship armor. While engineers worked, farmers among the settlers began clearing land around the ruins. The soil was rich, the rivers clean. Crops sprouted quickly under the strange sun. It was the first sign that the dead zones could sustain life. One exploration team ventured farther than the others and found a sealed gateway half buried under a cliff. The surface was carved with swirling symbols that shifted when looked at directly. The gateway seemed to hum, almost as if it were alive. Kane sent word to keep it under guard until they could figure out how to open it. That night, the sky lit up with streaks of light. Meteors at first glance, but their movements were too controlled. Kane ordered all ships to battle readiness. The objects slowed and hovered at the edge of the atmosphere, scanning the surface. No response came to hails. Then, without warning, they accelerated away into deep space. The incident left the camp uneasy. Some believed they'd been discovered by whoever built the ruins. Others feared the council had sent probes to track them. Kane kept his thoughts to himself but doubled the watch. Days later, miners digging near the mountains uncovered tunnels that led to a buried starship. Its design was unlike any known species, sleek and predatory. Inside, the controls were still active and the air was breathable. The engines were far more advanced than human models. Kane ordered the ship to be repaired and tested in secret. As the weeks passed, the colony grew. Temporary shelters became permanent homes. Human engineers learned to merge alien technology with their own, creating tools, weapons, and energy systems far superior to what they had before exile. The dead zones, once feared, were becoming a new cradle for humanity. One morning, a signal came through from a distant exploration team. They had followed the coordinates from the black sphere's pulses and reached another world, one even more advanced than the first. The team described floating cities, massive space docks, and thousands of derelict ships drifting in orbit, all untouched for centuries. Kane sent reinforcements immediately, knowing the risk. If the galaxy learned about these places, every major power would come for them. But the opportunity was too great. The New World's docks held warships armed with weapons no human had ever imagined. Engineers claimed some could fire beams that split asteroids in half with a single shot. Others were designed for stealth, vanishing from all scans. Kane began selecting crews to train on them, turning exiled settlers into a fleet that could challenge any in the galaxy. In the heart of the first city, the black sphere continued to pulse, faster now. Kane often stood before it in silence, feeling the faint vibrations through his boots. Some nights, he thought he saw shapes moving beneath its surface. Captain Solon suggested shutting it down, but Kane refused. One evening, a patrol ship picked up a faint distress call coming from beyond the farthest explored system. The voice was alien, panicked, speaking of shadows that swallowed whole ships. Kane considered ignoring it. They had enough to handle, but something in the message made him uneasy. He ordered a small team to investigate. The mission left, disappearing into the black. Days later, only fragments of their transmission returned, filled with static and a single clear sentence: "It's not dead. It's coming." Kane stood in the command chamber, staring at the message. Whatever had destroyed the team was still out there, somewhere in the dead zones. Yet he knew this truth. Humanity was no longer weak, no longer broken. They were building something powerful, and soon the galaxy would learn that exile had been their greatest mistake. Workshops rang with the sound of hammers, welding torches, and the hum of alien machines being adapted for human use. Engineers moved between massive ship frames, fitting them with armor made from the unbreakable metal found in the ruins. The first prototypes of the new warships stood like giants in the docks, their sharp lines and glowing energy cores unlike anything humans had built before. Kane walked among the crews, his presence silent but commanding. Every soldier, mechanic, and pilot knew what they were building: the Iron Fleet. Ships that would be faster, deadlier, and tougher than anything the Galactic Council could field. Training programs began in secret, with crews drilled day and night in tactics designed to exploit the weaknesses of every known alien species. In the underground hangars, the buried alien warship recovered from the mountains was finally restored. Its engines purred like a living creature, and its weapons were so advanced that even the engineers didn't fully understand them. Kane personally tested the ship in space, maneuvering it through asteroid fields at impossible speeds. When it returned to the dock, the crew whispered that it moved like a predator. The new fleet needed power cores far beyond human capacity. Mining teams were sent deeper into the dead zones to harvest rare crystals and metals from unstable planets. Many didn't return, lost to collapsing tunnels or strange gravitational storms, but those who survived brought back treasures that powered the growing war machine. Captain Solon oversaw weapons development. Alien energy cannons were mounted onto human frames, capable of slicing through the strongest shields. Missile systems were rebuilt with alien guidance tech, making them almost impossible to dodge. Defense grids could now absorb enemy fire and redirect it back. Every improvement brought them closer to being unstoppable. Kane kept the fleet hidden in the shadow of a shattered moon, its broken surface hiding the construction yards from any passing scans. Supply ships came and went under tight security, their routes unpredictable to avoid detection. Crews were ordered never to speak of their work outside the secured zones. One night, a scout ship returned with urgent news. A small alien convoy had entered the edge of the dead zones, likely smugglers or explorers. They were armed but vulnerable. Kane decided to intercept, not to destroy them, but to see how the new ships performed in real combat. The test was swift and decisive. Human ships using speed and cloaking technology appeared without warning, disabling the alien escorts in minutes. The convoy surrendered immediately. The captured aliens were shocked to see humans alive, let alone commanding ships of such power. Kane questioned them and learned that the Galactic Council was struggling. Internal wars had broken out between member species, leaving the galaxy unstable. This news was a spark in Kane's mind. The Council was distracted, vulnerable, and unprepared for humanity's return. But he held back, knowing the time wasn't yet right. The Iron Fleet had to be ready in full strength before they struck. Weeks turned into months, and the fleet grew. Training intensified. Pilots learned to fight blind, relying only on instruments. Boarding teams practiced storming enemy ships in under 60 seconds. Ground forces trained in simulated alien cities, preparing for planetary assaults. Every soldier carried the memory of exile like a blade in their heart. The black sphere in the ruins continued to pulse, now sending out bursts of light every few days. Scientists claimed it was trying to communicate, but no one could understand its message. Kane suspected it was a map pointing them towards something even more valuable than the technology they had found so far. During one test drill, a strange event occurred. As the fleet simulated a hyperspace jump, the black sphere activated on its own, projecting a three-dimensional image in the sky above the city. It showed a vast network of star systems, with certain points glowing brighter than others. The image lasted only a minute before fading, but it was enough for Kane to order immediate expeditions to the marked coordinates. The first marked system held an entire shipyard suspended in orbit around a gas giant. Dozens of half-completed alien warships floated there untouched for centuries. The second site revealed massive planetary shields still in working condition. The third held nothing but a dark, silent void that swallowed all scans. Kane marked it as dangerous and left it alone, for now. The Iron Fleet's strength became something to fear even among their own people. New recruits arrived from the outer colonies, drawn by rumors of a rising human power. Kane accepted them cautiously, testing their loyalty before allowing them near the core projects. As construction neared completion, Kane gathered his officers. The galaxy had forgotten humanity, but soon they would remember. The Council believed they had buried their enemy in the dead zones. Instead, they had given them the greatest weapon, time. The fleet would launch not as survivors, but as conquerors. A distress signal echoed through the command room, sharp and filled with static. The voice was alien, desperate, begging for help. Kane studied the coordinates. The source was outside their established territory, close to the border where the dead zones met council space. Some officers advised ignoring it, fearing a trap. Kane decided otherwise. A small strike group was dispatched, led by Captain Solon. The fleet cut through the void, their cloaks hiding them from detection. When they arrived, they found a single alien freighter drifting in space, its hull scorched, life support failing. Pirate ships surrounded it, preparing to finish the job. Without hesitation, human vessels decloaked and attacked. Energy beams tore through pirate shields, missiles crippled engines, and boarding teams swept the decks in minutes. The pirates were captured or fled into the dark. The freighter's crew, mostly from a minor trade species, stared in disbelief at their rescuers. Whispers spread among them that humans were supposed to be extinct. Kane's forces brought them aboard, treating their wounds and repairing their ship. In the debrief, the alien captain spoke of chaos spreading through council space. Trade routes were unsafe, border worlds were breaking away, and the council's fleets were stretched thin. He warned that if the council learned humanity still existed, they would send everything they had to destroy them. Kane listened carefully, his expression unreadable. The rescued freighter was escorted to the edge of the dead zones. As it departed, Kane knew the story of humanity's survival would reach other ears. It was no longer possible to stay hidden forever. Preparations began for their first deliberate step into the wider galaxy since exile. A month later, scouts reported an abandoned outpost on the border, once used by the Council as a patrol station. Kane ordered it seized and rebuilt. Within weeks, human banners flew from its towers, its defenses armed with hybrid weapons. From there, human ships could slip into Council territory without warning. The first official contact happened when a small merchant convoy crossed paths with the outpost. The alien crews froze when they saw the human soldiers waiting at the docks. Kane himself met them, offering protection for a price. The merchants agreed quickly, their fear mixed with curiosity. The goods they traded, food, rare metals, and fuel, flowed straight into the growing empire. Not all encounters were peaceful. A patrol of Council warships stumbled across a human strike force during one of its supply runs. The Council captain demanded their surrender, claiming humanity's presence outside the dead zones was illegal. Kane refused. The battle lasted less than 15 minutes. Human ships, smaller and faster, slipped between the Council formations, targeting engines and weapon banks with precision. When it was over, the Council ships were drifting, their crews alive, but humiliated. News spread quickly across the border worlds. Stories of human warships appearing from nowhere and vanishing just as suddenly began to replace the old tales of their weakness. Some planets sent envoys in secret, offering resources in exchange for protection. Others sent warnings that the Council was beginning to take notice. In the Central Command, maps of Council space were updated daily. Kane studied them, marking systems that were unstable, worlds ripe for rebellion. He refused to strike too soon. Every operation had to be calculated, every victory used to strengthen their position. Captain Solon oversaw covert missions deep into Council territory. Human agents infiltrated ports, gathering information on fleet movements, political disputes, and trade shortages. In some worlds, they quietly supplied weapons to rebel groups, feeding the unrest. The black sphere in the ruins continued to pulse faster, as if sensing the growing tension. Scientists still could not decode its language, but some claimed it was reacting to humanity's spread. Kane visited it one night, alone, and placed his hand on its surface. The hum that followed was deep, almost approving. Weeks later, another alien ship appeared on the border, this time a sleek diplomatic vessel, bearing the crest of a powerful merchant guild. Its leader offered an alliance, warning that the Council was preparing to send a fleet into the dead zones to confirm the rumors. Kane agreed to the alliance, but set strict terms. No guild ships would reveal the location of humanity's new worlds, and in return, the Iron Fleet would protect their trade. Preparations for open conflict accelerated. The shipyards worked without pause, turning out new cruisers every month. Ground forces trained for urban warfare on alien terrain. Communications officers intercepted council transmissions, piecing together their strategy. One intercepted message confirmed Kane's expectations. A large council task force was gathering near the border. This was not a patrol, it was a hunting party. Kane summoned his officers and outlined the plan. They would not wait to be found. The Iron Fleet would strike first, and the galaxy would learn that humanity's exile had ended. The Iron Fleet emerged from the shadow of the shattered moon, engines burning bright. Rows of black and silver warships moved in perfect formation, their hulls glinting with the unbreakable metal taken from the ruins. Kane stood on the bridge of the flagship, eyes locked on the stars ahead. The time for hiding was over. Scouts had already marked the location of the Council's task force, 20 capital ships and twice as many escorts. They were waiting near the border, confident that humanity would not dare to cross. Kane intended to prove them wrong. Orders rippled through the fleet. Crews strapped into their stations, weapons charged, shields at full power. The hum of alien-enhanced engines filled the air. Kane raised his hand, and the fleet jumped into hyperspace. The stars stretched into streaks, then snapped back as the human fleet dropped into enemy space. The Council ships turned in surprise, scrambling to form battle lines. Their comm channels filled with demands for identification, warnings, and threats. Kane gave no reply. Human ships surged forward in a spearhead formation. Cloaked frigates appeared among the Council ranks, striking from within. Enemy cruisers tried to focus fire, but the Iron Fleet moved too fast, darting in and out of range. Precision strikes disabled weapon banks, ruptured engines, and tore through shields. On the flagship's bridge, Captain Solon called out enemy positions, her voice calm despite the chaos. Kane issued rapid commands, directing smaller ships to isolate and overwhelm targets. Every move was calculated, every hit meant to cripple, not destroy, a message to the Council that humanity could win without slaughter. The battle lasted less than an hour. One by one, Council ships powered down, unable to continue. The surviving commanders opened a channel, their voices tight with disbelief. Kane offered them a choice: leave this sector immediately and spread the word. Humanity had returned, and they were not to be challenged again. The Council fleet retreated, limping away. Human ships held their ground, forming a wall of steel and light at the border. Across the galaxy, reports of the battle spread like wildfire. Worlds that had been under Council rule for generations began to whisper about rebellion. Within days, envoys from 3 independent systems arrived at Kane's command. They brought supplies, weapons, and promises of loyalty in exchange for protection. Kane accepted, knowing every alliance tightened humanity's grip on the galaxy's trade routes. Reconstruction began on the captured Council ships. Engineers stripped them down, replacing their outdated systems with alien hybrid technology. Soon, even the enemy's vessels would serve the Iron Fleet. The Merchant Guild alliance proved useful. Their traders carried stories of the battle to every port, painting Kane as a commander who could challenge the old order. Recruitment surged, with skilled pilots, soldiers, and engineers traveling from distant colonies to join the cause. In the dead zones, the black sphere pulsed with an almost frantic rhythm. Scientists reported that its energy output had doubled since the battle. Some believed it was reacting to humanity's spread across the stars, while others feared it was awakening something far older. Kane kept his focus on the present but ordered increased security around it. Small skirmishes followed. Council patrols that entered border space vanished without trace. Rebellions on fringe worlds erupted faster than the Council could suppress them. Human ships appeared in orbit above rebel cities, dropping supplies and weapons before vanishing into hyperspace. One mission brought unexpected results. A human strike team liberated a mining colony deep in Council territory, only to discover that its leader had once served as a Council admiral. He offered Kane detailed maps of Council defenses in exchange for a place in the new order. Kane agreed, but kept him under constant watch. Each victory fed the growing legend of the Iron Fleet. Some called them liberators, others conquerors. To Kane, the difference didn't matter. What mattered was that humanity was no longer a forgotten name in history. When word came that the Council was massing another fleet near a key trade world, Kane saw the opportunity. Not only would they strike again, but this time they would hold the territory. The fleet prepared for a second major engagement, loading supplies for a prolonged campaign. Before departure, Kane stood once more before the black sphere. Its surface shimmered, and for a brief moment, he saw the outline of a vast structure floating in deep space, far beyond any explored region. The image faded, leaving him with a single thought: the exile had been the Council's greatest mistake, but the true test of humanity's empire was still to come. The Iron Fleet descended on the trade world of Valaris Prime with the force of a storm. Council warships had already formed a blockade above the planet, confident in their numbers. Kane's fleet emerged from hyperspace in a wide formation, splitting into 3 attack groups. Cloaked vessels slipped beneath the enemy lines while the main force drew their fire. Enemy commanders barked orders, trying to adjust to the unpredictable tactics. Human ships darted between them like hunters, disabling engines, jamming communications, and targeting supply vessels first. Without their transports, the Council fleet began to falter. On the planet's surface, Valaris' cities were tense under martial law. Council troops patrolled the streets, suppressing any sign of unrest. That changed the moment the human fleet broke through the blockade. Dropships roared into the atmosphere, carrying soldiers in black and silver armor. They landed in the city centers, driving Council forces into retreat with precision strikes. Citizens watched in shock as human banners were raised over government buildings. Kane addressed the planet's leaders in person, offering freedom from the Council in exchange for loyalty to the new human empire. Faced with the memory of the fleet's power, they agreed. The capture of Valaris Prime sent waves across the galaxy. It was not just another raid. This was the first world openly taken from the Council and held under human control. Trade routes shifted overnight as merchants sought to deal with Kane's forces instead of risking Council tariffs and inspections. Engineers moved quickly to turn Valaris into a fortress. Orbital defense stations were repaired and fitted with alien hybrid weaponry. Planetary shields were installed, capable of withstanding a full-scale siege. Garrisons trained local militias, ensuring the world could hold its own even if the fleet moved on. Council response was slow, their fleets still recovering from the last defeat. Instead, they turned to diplomacy, sending envoys to nearby worlds with promises of protection if they refused human influence. Kane countered with his own envoys, backed by the unspoken threat of the Iron Fleet. Many worlds quietly sided with him, unwilling to return to the Council's control. In the dead zones, the Black Sphere's activity reached new levels. It began emitting beams of light into the night sky, each one pointing toward a different star system. Scientists marked the coordinates, finding that each pointed to regions long abandoned. Kane dispatched exploration teams to follow them, suspecting more ancient shipyards or technology. One team returned with a discovery that stunned the command. Deep in a frozen system, they found an entire armada, hundreds of alien warships preserved in the ice of a shattered moon. Their systems were dormant but intact. With time and resources, they could be reactivated. Kane immediately began plans to salvage them, knowing this could double the strength of his fleet. Not all news was good. A patrol near the outer edge of the dead zones vanished without a trace. The last transmission contained only static and a faint echo of the same strange tone heard from the sphere months ago. Some officers believed it was connected to the unknown force mentioned in the earlier distress call. Kane ordered all frontier patrols reinforced and instructed scouts to investigate discreetly. On Valaris Prime, human rule was met with mixed feelings. Many welcomed the change, grateful for the end of council taxes and restrictions. Others feared replacing one ruler with another. Kane addressed these fears directly, promising fair governance and protection. His words were backed by swift action. Corrupt officials were removed, stolen resources returned to the people, and security tightened against smuggling and piracy. The Council made one last attempt to reclaim Valaris by sending a small strike force. It never reached the planet. Human ships intercepted them in deep space, tearing their formation apart before they could even signal for help. Survivors were sent back with a single message carved into their hulls: the age of exile is over. As the months passed, Kane's empire began to take shape. Valaris became the central hub for trade, military coordination, and diplomacy. The fleet patrolled its growing borders, striking at any threat before it could take root. Rumors spread that even distant, lawless regions were beginning to fall in line, not out of fear, but respect for the order humanity brought. Late one night, Kane returned to the Black Sphere. Standing alone before its shifting surface, he felt the faint vibration under his feet. The lights inside swirled faster than ever before, forming a pattern he almost recognized. A map, not of the galaxy, but beyond it. Whatever lay there was far from any charted space. He left the chamber with a single thought burning in his mind. The council was only the beginning. Something else was out there, older and more powerful, and it was waking up. Humanity had risen from exile, but their greatest challenge was yet to come. The black sphere pulsed with a deep, steady rhythm that could be felt through the ground. Kane stood with the science team as they confirmed the latest readings. The energy patterns were no longer random. They formed sequences, each one lasting longer and growing stronger. The message was clear. Whatever the sphere was linked to had fully awakened. Scouts returned from the outer reaches of the dead zones with troubling reports. Entire systems were empty, their planets stripped of life. Space debris drifted in unnatural patterns as if moved by something massive. The few surviving transmissions spoke of enormous shapes moving between the stars, silent and invisible to standard scans. The coordinates displayed by the sphere matched the path of this unknown force. Kane gathered his war council and laid out the situation. If they ignored it, the threat would eventually reach human space. If they faced it now, they could control the battlefield. The decision was unanimous. The Iron Fleet would intercept. Valeris Prime became a hive of preparation. Shipyards worked without pause, finishing new cruisers and outfitting older ones with salvaged alien weapons. Ground forces loaded supplies for long-term deployment. Every able pilot, soldier, and engineer was called to service. Rumors spread that this enemy was not the Council, not rebels, but something far worse. The fleet set out under silent running, following the sphere's star map. Days passed without incident until they reached a dark region where starlight itself seemed dimmed. Then the sensors picked up movement, hundreds of massive ships unlike anything ever recorded. Their hulls were jagged, grown rather than built, and they moved without visible engines. Attempts at communication failed. The alien vessels advanced in perfect silence, their weapons glowing with an unnatural light. Kane ordered the fleet into attack formation. The first volley from the Iron Fleet struck true, tearing apart the lead ships, but the enemy did not break formation. They adapted instantly, targeting human ships with precision as if they had studied their tactics before the battle began. Fighting was brutal. Enemy weapons ripped through shields, forcing crews to switch to evasive maneuvers. Boarding attempts failed when it was discovered the alien ships were alive, their corridors shifting and sealing off intruders. Kane's flagship led a counterattack, using cloaked frigates to strike at the enemy's rear. Hours into the battle, the black sphere back on Valeris began to emit a continuous beam toward the conflict zone. The beam struck one of the enemy's largest ships, destabilizing it until it collapsed into itself. Realizing the sphere could be used as a weapon, Kane ordered the fleet to push the enemy toward its projected range. The plan worked. One by one, the sphere's energy strikes crippled the largest enemy vessels, allowing the Iron Fleet to concentrate fire on the smaller ones. After 2 full days of fighting, the surviving alien ships retreated into deep space, vanishing as suddenly as they had appeared. Victory came at a cost. Several human ships were lost, and many more were heavily damaged. Crews mourned their dead, but the knowledge that they had faced something beyond the Council and won spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, the legend of humanity grew. Kane returned to Valeris to find the black sphere silent once more. Its surface was still warm, and faint light moved beneath it, but the pulsing had stopped. Scientists could not say if the threat was gone or only waiting. Kane ordered constant monitoring, knowing it might one day call them to battle again. In the weeks that followed, emissaries from dozens of worlds arrived on Valeris, pledging loyalty to the new human empire. Some came out of fear, others from admiration, but all recognized the power Kane commanded. Council influence collapsed as more planets broke away, joining the alliance under human leadership. The Iron Fleet patrolled the borders of this new order, ready to face any threat. Shipyards expanded, colonies flourished, and trade flowed freely under the Empire's protection. Humanity, once banished and forgotten, now ruled the most powerful force in the galaxy. Yet Kane knew this was only the beginning. The dead zones still held secrets, and somewhere in the darkness, the strange living ships might be preparing to return. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars pass by, and felt the weight of both victory and the battles yet to come. The exile was over, the Empire was born, but the future would test them in ways no one could yet imagine. The galaxy looked different now. Where once the banners of the old Galactic Council hung over starports and capitol buildings, the silver and blue flag of the human empire now waved proudly. It was a simple design, a single star in the center surrounded by a ring, but to trillions across countless worlds, it had come to mean safety, justice, and strength. Planets that had once mocked humans now sent their leaders to the Imperial capital to swear loyalty. Alien soldiers marched alongside human troops in perfect formation, their armor gleaming under artificial suns. Merchant ships traveled through secure trade lanes patrolled by human-built warships, their captains no longer fearing raids or pirate attacks. The chaos that had plagued the galaxy for centuries was fading, replaced by an order that worked. On the massive throne world of Arendor Prime, the Emperor of Humanity walked the marble halls of the Imperial Palace. He was no longer the unknown leader of an exiled people. He was now the most powerful man in the galaxy. But his steps were steady, his face calm. He remembered the history, how humans had been cast out, how the council had believed they would vanish into the dark. That memory was a fire that never went out. Visitors came from every corner of the galaxy. Some came to negotiate trade deals. Others came to petition for military assistance. A few came simply to look upon the man whose people had risen from exile to supremacy. They expected arrogance. They found a leader who listened, who remembered what it meant to be ignored, and who refused to repeat the same mistakes the old rulers had made. Even in the farthest colonies, the human empire's presence was felt. On desert worlds, Imperial engineers built water processing plants that gave life to dead soil. On frozen moons, energy grids powered entire cities, where before there had only been struggling outposts. The Empire didn't just conquer, it rebuilt, it strengthened, and it made allies out of former enemies. Of course, not everyone accepted the new order easily. A handful of old council loyalists tried to resist, forming secret groups to undermine Imperial authority. But the Empire's intelligence network, manned by humans and aliens alike, uncovered plots before they could grow dangerous. Most of the time, these groups were given a choice: join and work for a better galaxy, or remain outside and fade into irrelevance. Few chose the latter. In the Great Senate Hall of the Empire, representatives of 100 species sat together, debating laws and shaping policies. It was noisy, chaotic, and full of clashing opinions, but unlike in the old days, decisions were made quickly, and corruption was dealt with harshly. If a senator tried to use their position for personal gain, they would find themselves removed and replaced within days. Trade flourished. Scientists from dozens of species worked together in vast research stations, building on each other's discoveries. Medicine advanced rapidly. Diseases that had once devastated entire planets now cured in days. Space travel became faster and safer, with new jump routes opening every year. Ordinary citizens felt the change in their daily lives. Better food, more work opportunities, and the knowledge that if danger came, the Imperial fleets would answer. The fleet itself was the pride of the Empire. Sleek, massive battleships patrolled the borders, their human and alien crews bound together by loyalty rather than fear. They carried the memory of the wars that had brought them here, and the silent promise that no enemy would ever again threaten their home. In the quiet of his private chambers, the Emperor sometimes looked out at the city lights of Arendor Prime and thought about Earth, the cradle of humanity, still distant but thriving under the Empire's protection. He thought of the first generation exiled into the unknown, the hardship, the hunger, and the stubborn will that had kept them alive. He thought of how far they had come, from broken ships and scattered colonies to ruling the stars. But he also knew power could be dangerous. He ordered his council to constantly audit the Empire's actions, to keep it from becoming the same kind of corrupt, complacent regime they had once overthrown. The memory of being banished and forgotten was more than a story, it was a warning. Across the galaxy, children of every species learned about the rise of the human empire in their schools. They read how humanity had been underestimated, how they had built alliances instead of seeking revenge, and how they had turned their exile into the foundation of greatness. For many, the story was an inspiration, proof that even those cast aside could rise higher than anyone imagined. In the great starports, travelers from distant worlds stood in awe as they watched the imperial banners ripple in the artificial breeze. They saw the guards in their silver armor and the vast ships lifting into orbit, and they knew whose will now shaped the galaxy's future. Some whispered about the day humans would have to face a threat even greater than the Council's betrayal. But for now, the Empire stood unchallenged, its influence stretching farther with each passing year. And for those who had once believed humanity would disappear into the dark, the truth was now carved into the history of the stars. The exiled race had returned, not as beggars or outcasts, but as rulers. And their reign had only just begun,